to a regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Hartford Common Council. All proper notices were sent. I'd ask if you'd please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, calling the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Roll call, Sam.
The mayor and all alderpersons are here, except for Tony Garza, Joe Kohler, and Justin Webb, who are all absent and excused.
Thank you very much. We have before us a unanimous consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Move for approval, President Rusniak, second by Alderperson Carroll.
Motion by Alderperson Rusniak, seconded by Alderperson Carroll, approving the Common Council minutes of July 25th, 2023.
Any comments, questions, corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Communications, Sam.
I have a couple of things regarding the Mid-Moraine Committee. They will be holding election of officers, so if anybody is interested in running for any of those office positions, you can let Shanna know and she'll forward that information along. There's also 2 meetings coming up in September. The first one is September 13th, which will be the Legislative Committee. It says, please ensure that someone from your community is in attendance as the agenda is planning for the next 2 years. And then the second meeting is the dinner meeting hosted by the Village of Thiensville on September 27th. We don't have an RSVP date yet for that, but if you are interested, again, let Shanna know and we'll forward that information along.
Thank you very much. Appearances and citizen comments. We do have one scheduled. Wendy Unger from Baker Tilly to present the 2022 City of Hartford financial statements. You have 3 glorious minutes. Just kidding.
Don't rush her.
Well, thank you for having me here this evening. Again, my name is Wendy Unger. I'm the partner from Baker Tilly responsible for the city's audit. You should have been provided as part of your packet both the audited financial statements, a reporting and insights document, and also a couple-page handout, which I will use to go through both of those documents at a relatively high level. The handout does include some page references within the audited statement, so I encourage you to take a look at those at your convenience. But to begin with, I want to comment on the auditor's opinion that we've issued as part of the audit process. Included in your audited statements, similar to what you've received in the past, is a clean, unmodified opinion. Best type of opinion you can receive, highest level of assurance that you can obtain from us as your auditors. The only item I would note about that opinion is it does look and feel a little bit different than it did for calendar year 2021. There was an emphasis of matters paragraph added for 2022. The city was required under the governmental accounting standards to implement GASB 87. We've talked about this for many years. It relates to the accounting for leases. Again, the city implemented that and had some additional disclosures required under that standard. Because there was a new standard implemented, we are required to bring that to the reader's attention. So again, nothing unusual or unexpected with that, but just not something you have every year. Switching gears to the reporting and insights letter before I get into the financial information, just a couple items to note there. We issue that document to communicate any types of comments or recommendations that may come up as part of the audit process. That letter, that document, again, looks and feels very similar to what you've had in the past. Just a couple items to highlight it from that document. One, we do communicate material weakness because we do prepare the financial statements as part of the audit process. We do become part of the city's internal control system for a brief period of time. We also prepare the schedule of federal and state awards, again, becoming part of your internal control structures. We do some journal entries to convert your statements. I'm not going to get into the details on that, but we do have to, under GASB 34, convert them from a normal modified accrual, which you account for on a day-to-day basis, to a full accrual for your topside statement. So we do some entries. We did not have any material audit entries, so very happy to say that there was nothing that came up through the audit process except for the conversion entries that I previously mentioned. Other items, comments and recommendations, we continue to carry forward. Cash collection sites, just a reminder to management and the Common Council that the city does have various cash collection points. One of them currently the city pool, where you do have cash that is collected that is at some risk, only due to the fact it doesn't fall under the controls of the city's collection point here. Not something to be concerned about. We did not find anything associated with that, but we do remind you on an annual basis of those locations. The last item on there, and this hasn't been something that has been a concern in the recent past, but to continue to monitor for arbitrage. Arbitrage is when you issue debt, you put the money in the bank, you earn more interest than what you're paying on the debt. Your financial advisors assist the city in monitoring that, but again, with the interest fluctuations that have occurred, something to keep in mind throughout the next year. The rest of that document, very normal and customary, nothing I need to draw your attention to. The last item I would note within that document is there is a section in there that highlights new governmental accounting standards that are effective for governments in the upcoming year. Similar to 87 that was implemented at the city for 2022, there will be GASB 96, which will be effective for the city for 2023, and that is the accounting for subscription-based IT arrangements. And as exciting as that may sound, it is really looking at the various subscriptions that the city has, for example, SCADA systems, GIS systems, space in the cloud, those type of arrangements, and really accounting for them very similar to the leases under 87. So we've already provided management with some templates and tracking devices, and we'll help them accumulate the data to determine the effect of that for 2023. Shifting gears then and getting into some financial highlights. On the bottom of the first page of the handout, I do mention the management discussion and analysis. That is included on pages 4 through 12 of your audited statements. This is a very good Cliff Note version of what has occurred at the city during 22 in comparison to 2021. It's at a very high level, but does add some context around fluctuations that may have occurred. The management discussion and analysis, one thing to keep in mind, again, I mentioned previously when I talked about the journal entries we do to convert city data, is the management discussion and analysis is presented on a full accrual basis of accounting. Again, you do not monitor or maintain your books and records that way on a day-to-day basis. So the numbers are very large, and really what the meaning of that full accrual is that assets are on, our capital assets or fixed assets are on your balance sheet, debt is on your balance sheet, depreciation is recorded on your capital assets. That is not the way your day-to-day books are handled. It's not the way that governments account for on a day-to-day, so those numbers look and feel very different and are very large in nature. Also includes all long-term obligations, so OPEB benefits and that type of scenario, which again is not on the balance sheet of the city on a normal day. Just a couple items to note there. Again, we put in there a condensed balance sheet and a condensed income statement. The balance sheet shows an increase in net position over 2022 by roughly $3 million. Most of that is contributed by the utilities, and we'll talk in a moment what happened at the utilities during the year, but most of that increase is associated with the performance of the utilities. The income statement again showed an increase in net position of $3.5 million, very comparable to the previous year. It was $3.3 million, so very little fluctuation. From a full accrual standpoint on the balance sheet and income statement. Turning to the next page, this is where we get into the information that you would see on a more frequent basis. This is the way, this is the information that the city prepares on a daily basis. The first item I've noted there is the budgetary comparison. There is a detailed schedule included in the back of your audited statements on page 91. This is your budget to actual for general fund. This is the one required schedule that is included in a budget to actual presentation. A couple items to note there. The general fund overall for 2022 used roughly $449,000 of fund balance. When you put together your 2022 budget, you budgeted to use roughly $315,000. So very close to budget, to your anticipated fund balance usage during the year, used a little bit more than what you had expected. A couple reasons for that. Overall, revenues came in over budget, so you ended very favorable in your revenue categories. You were over budget by almost $270,000. Most of that came within the public charges for services area, where ambulance revenue was higher than expected. You had billed the U.S. Open for staffing that you provided. That was an additional $35,000 you didn't budget for. Refuse and recycling came in over budget. So again, overall, several categories there that ended favorably. The miscellaneous category also ended $112,000 over budget, really in the area of donations. The city received $70,000 of donations during the year that were over what was anticipated. You also had the K-9 project that generated an additional $20,000. So again, most of that is in the form of donations in that project. Expenses, you were also over budget, so that's unfavorable. You were over budget by $106,000 in all of your categories. The main reason for that, although you had some overage within your general government category, the main reason for that was you did have the land purchase that was not anticipated for the fire department. So that was $213,000 of that overage. So again, overall, $449,000 used of fund balance. The general fund ended the year at $6.6 million of fund balance. Most of that is unassigned. 6.1. So unassigned means those are monies you have available for spending at your discretion. That represents roughly 55% of your operating budget. So very strong financial position. That affords you some flexibility on when you need to go to the bond market. Also gives you a very positive rating with the bond rating agencies, because you do have some funds on hand to cover unexpected needs. The next item is the three utilities that I've highlighted. Again, within your audited statements, there are income statements, balance sheets, and cash flows. Just a couple items to note on the electric, water, and wastewater. Electric ended the year and adding $1.1 million to its net position. That's relatively comparable, a little bit higher than it was in '21 at $870,000. The electric did end the year at almost $30 million in net position, and also saw a $1.1 million increase in cash. So from a cash flow standpoint and from an operational standpoint, very favorable. The electric utility did have a rate of return. That's a figure that's calculated by the PSC and helps determine when a new rate study is needed. The rate of return was 7.34%. For 2022, so again, a very solid rate of return and well within the value that the PSC wouldn't even look at doing any type of rate study. Water utility, very comparable to the previous year, added $967,000 to net position. That compares to $976,000 in the previous year. So very comparable. Ended the year at $27.8 million of net position. Did see a decrease in cash of roughly $212,000. But again, still maintain a rate of return of roughly 5.93%. So again, a very strong position. One thing to note is that both the water and electric will be debt-free in 2024. That's the year of the last debt payment, and then ultimately your cash flow will even improve more in both of those. The last one is the wastewater utility, or the wastewater treatment plant. Again, a $969,000 increase in that position compared to a $2.4 million increase last year. So a little bit of a decrease there. There were some additional adjustments or expenses related to OPEB and pension. So those were up roughly $400,000 over the previous year. And they did see a decrease in the reserve capacity assessment that is collected by almost another $400,000. But they did end the year with a positive cash flow and added over $900,000 to their cash positions as of the end of the year. So again, all three utilities ended the year very nicely. Long-term debt is the next bullet item that I've included. There's extensive footnotes included within your audited statements that highlight the various obligations of the city. Just a couple items to note. During 2022, the city did borrow on the governmental fund side, so borrowed a little bit over $7 million. You paid down $5.7 million. So you did overall see an increase in your long-term debt or your general obligation debt within the general fund or within the governmental funds. So roughly a $1.4 million increase. The utilities paid down $1.8 million. No new debt was borrowed. So again, they saw a nice decrease in their their long-term debt outstanding. And then we always like to look at what the capacity the city has to borrow. You're able to borrow 5% of your equalized value. So when you do that calculation and you subtract the general obligation debt outstanding, the city still has capacity to borrow over $69 million as of 12/31. So just to put that in perspective, very solid debt capacity. Moving on then, I do highlight the leases, the implementation of GASB 34. There is a new footnote disclosure. I encourage you to take a look at it. It immediately follows the long-term obligations footnote. And the activity that is accounted for under that new standard is actually all of your hangar leases for the airport. So all of those are accounted for under that new standard in a different presentation. Lastly, again, I just highlight the other remaining fund balances of the city. We spoke about the general fund, the debt service fund. This is the fund that pays principal and interest on city debt, not utility debt. That had a fund balance of roughly $70,000 as of the end of the year, an increase over the previous year of $24,000. Those monies are restricted. They can only be used for debt service, so those are monies you have available to offset against future levy or prepaid debt, however the council and management see fit. You also still carry a balance in your Veterans Park pool project fund. Those monies are somewhat set aside for repairs and maintenance and needs out at the pool. That project had a $90,000 fund balance and did see a decrease in 22 of roughly $17,000. The capital project fund, other projects, this is all the TIF activity of the city. So this is all the items combined. Did have a deficit balance of $2.6 million, which is not unusual for TIFs until they're up and running. But I will note that that deficit did decrease in 2022 by roughly $354,000. So it is starting to move in the right direction. So that is very positive. And then the Capital Improvements Fund had a fund balance of $2.9 million. That did have an increase of $360,000, mainly due to you borrowed during the year, you didn't spend all the money, so there were some remaining funds there. The very last bullet point I have there is the non-major governmental funds. There is a page in the very back of your audited statements, page 98, I believe, that summarizes the remaining funds. And this is the library, the rec center, your bid, the transportation program, CDBG, which is a new program for the year. All those funds combined saw a decrease in fund balance of $57,000 and ended at the year at a little bit over $4 million. Again, all of them, although they did have decreases, ended with very strong fund balances as of the end of 2022. I have included at the very bottom of the back page my email, my direct line. Happy to talk with any of you about the audit process, the financial statements, anything I presented, but I'm also happy to answer any questions you might have now.
Anybody, I do have a question, Wendy. You did mention, and thank you for a very thorough report. It's always a pleasure to have it spelled out so thoroughly. You mentioned that the utilities would be debt-free in 2024. Do you have an idea on an annualized basis what that saves the city as far as the payment that we would make toward those? That would be phenomenal.
Yep, give me 1 second. Roughly almost $1,980,000.
So I can round it up to 2 million.
Sure.
Okay,
Wow.
all righty.
Yep.
Just wanted to have an idea. Go ahead.
I just had one question. On the utilities, you said, forgive my term if it's incorrect, but a 7.34% rate of return for the electric, 5.93 for water. Does the wastewater have
No.
one too?
There isn't a calculated percentage. Both of those are calculated via the data that is submitted to the Public Service Commission, because both the water and electric are regulated. Your wastewater utility is not. So that is not a calculation that is done as part of the audit process.
Okay, thank you.
Thought the same thing. Go ahead. President Rosniak.
As I read through this weekend, I understood half of it. The other half I did not understand. There was one item in there, compensated absences. What's that?
Accumulated vacation pay, so vacation and sick pay, that's due,
So when Steve takes 3 months vacation?
Yes.
We have to pay him.
Is he down to 3?
Yeah, I think he's down to 3, right.
assuming he has it accumulated, yes, you have to pay him.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Alderperson Fuller, did you have a question, or?
No, just nice job, that's all I had.
Oh, okay, yes.
Same as last year, you did just very thorough analysis.
Thank you.
so
Appreciate
Appreciate it very
that.
much.
Wonderful. If that's it, everybody does have the email. Wendy, again, thank you very much. We
welcome.
sincerely
Thank you.
appreciate your work on this.
Just a quick comment again, I would like to thank the staff that we deal with. Wendy and her staff do a great job, and we appreciate all the work that they do on the audit, but also our finance department. Dawn basically wrestles with this for several months to get ready for the audit and then help during the audit. Her and her staff did a great job on this, so our thanks to them.
Thank you. We'll continue with appearances of citizen comments. Anybody wishing to come up, you are welcome to come up to the podium. State your name and address. You get 3 glorious minutes. If it does not have to do with our public hearing, because the public hearing will have its own area of comment. Okay, if not, we'll go to the mayor's report. People often ask me, what's the most common question you get asked when you go to one of the many stores? Anne Marie and I both like to shop a lot locally, and I always get pigeonholed into different questions. And I just wanted to let you know, as is common when there is construction, and that is, what are they going to do, or what's happening, or why doesn't it seem to be moving faster with where the culvert used to be across Highway 60 and what's going in there. I believe I am still correct in the fact that it will be a Qdoba restaurant, a Jersey Mike's, and a hair salon, all 3 of which will be in that space. To my knowledge, they are going on track. A lot of the work has to do when you're putting in that kind of a building with the foundation and with the the utilities and that are going in. So just because you don't see something going on above ground doesn't mean there isn't something going on underground. So they are on track, and I understand that they're looking for a January opening and they are still on track. So if that's your question, please know that that answer will not change unless they go demonstrably late, and I do not anticipate that happening. So that's all I have. Aldermanic requests. President Rosniak.
Well, just to add to yours, Tractor Supply has already demolished the buildings on the west side of Hartford, leveled off the big hill, and there's lots and lots of activity out there. So just to follow you.
Thank you very much. Alderperson Carroll.
I have a question about some signage that is on Highway 60 West. There's been a right lane closed sign for at least 3 weeks by a construction company that I believe dug up a gas line near
By Hanks.
Hanks there. Is there something we can do about fining them people for leaving that sign there? I see trucks, numerous trucks getting over in the left lane because they think that lane's gonna be closed. It's not. All they'd have to do is turn the signs. I'm just wondering if there's something we have on the books that we can fine these people, or maybe we should put something on the books.
Confiscate their signs.
I am unaware of the situation, so I will have Daryl look into it tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's west of the city,
It's-
or?
No, it's when you're traveling eastbound, excuse me, eastbound on Highway 60 from, the signs start between, maybe
By
just
Cedar-
before Rural Street.
Cedar Street,
Between
Okay.
Cedar Street and
Yeah,
Rural Street,
yeah,
it says
yeah, so-
right lane closed ahead.
So it was
And they got-
actually it was actually the work that they did along the side of Hanks.
Yes, yeah, it's from that, but they don't cover up the signs when they're not working there.
and there's a big steel plate across.
Yeah, well, that I don't have a problem with. I understand there's a hole in the ground, but the signage, people are moving over to the left thinking that this road's gonna be closed and it's not.
Yep.
And all they have to do is turn their signs or cover them up.
Is that it?
That's it.
Alderperson Reagan.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Alderperson Savage.
Nothing.
Alderperson Turchy.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Alderperson Fulham.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Thank you very much. With that, we're going to a public hearing, which is a review of an extraterritorial rezoning request for a portion of the property located at the northwest corner of Goodland Road and County Road Highway N, as in Nancy, from I-2 Industrial District to A2 General Agricultural District. I'd like to open the hearing and ask for a reading of the notice.
Please take notice that a public hearing will be held at 7 PM or thereafter on August 22nd, 2023, in the Common Council Chambers at the lower level of City Hall, 109 North Main Street, by the City of Hartford Common Council to consider the following. GWI Properties LLC have requested the rezoning of a portion of the property at the northwest corner of County Highway N and Goodland Road, current tax key number 038-1017-1224-000, from I-2 Industrial District to A2 Agricultural District. The purpose of the public hearing is to hear those persons who wish to express their opinions for or against the requested zoning change. A copy of the proposed ordinance can be viewed at the Planning and Zoning Department by appointment, 109 North Main Street, Monday through Friday between the hours of 7:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. This was published in the Daily News August 4th and August 11th, and there were 10 notices sent.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll have explanation by staff. I'm assuming that will be Jacob Maas.
That is correct. There we go. The owner of the property, GWI Properties LLC, which is James Gooden Schritter, who is the registered agent, approached the city in 2018 requesting a rezoning of a portion of this property to I-2 Industrial District in order to build a welding shop. Rezoning a portion of the property without a land split is not possible, and the owners had not owned the land long enough to legally split it under the town's land division ordinance. The owner subsequently rezoned the entire lot to I-2 Industrial District with the intent to split the lot by August 31st, 2023, and rezone the sections appropriately. The owners have submitted a proposed certified survey map, which is in your packet, as well as you will be voting on it in the resolutions. That splits the property into two lots. Lot 1 will remain in the I-2 industrial zoning, and Lot 1 is 8 acres and fronts on Goodland Road. Lot 2 is in the area of the rezoned A2 general agricultural zoning. Lot 2 is 20.94 acres and fronts on both Goodland Road and County Trunk Highway. And the 2018 rezoning allowed the owner to develop the portion of the property into a welding shop while continuing to farm the rest of the parcel. The owner already has a similar business at N3844 Goodland Road, south of this property. Rezoning the portion of land not industrial use back to agricultural zoning allows the owner to bring the property back to the owner's original intent of the 2018 lot split rezoning request. The parcel meets the minimum square footage and with requirements for the A2 General Agricultural District. The rezoning of the proposed Lot 2 is contingent on the city and the county approving and recording the certified survey map, splitting the property into two parcels. So we are seeking approval of this. There are some concerns about runoff, but again, because this is zoned I-2 for the industrial development, it would have to comply with NR 151, which is the stormwater review by the DNR, and again, that's triggered when any time you develop land more than 1 acre in size.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll go for appearances for anybody wishing to appear for the extraterritorial rezoning request. Please come up to the microphone, state your name, company, position, and you have 3 glorious minutes.
Yeah, my name is Larry Kraukamp, and my address is W846 Highway in Rubicon. I have the land right next to this here. I'm not opposed to this here where they're gonna build whatsoever, But what I'm concerned about, I know this land, this was my father-in-law's, and this water used to really run off bad up there. This is a monstrous hill. And anyway, my father-in-law built a berm there, you know, and the problem is, the water comes down when it's really wet. Right now, it's not going to happen because it's dry out there, you know, or whatever. But I mean, when it gets super wet out, the water will come across, go across the berm, or what doesn't go across the berm will come down into the ditch, and all that water from along Goodland Road and down in will come down to our farm, and then it comes to a culvert there. If the culvert can't handle it, which it many times hasn't, then it will run into the house that we have there and the barn, you know. And I was looking to see if we can get a stormwater study done on this here. And I'm gonna have the FSA office, they're gonna check my land out after I have my soybeans off, and we're gonna see how bad our land is right next door right now. And I mean, this is, what should I say? Put it this way here, we just had 3 inches of rain, right? Not too long ago. Well, on the farmland up there, or by us, we didn't have nothing running off. What happened in the city of Milwaukee? It flooded. So this is a good example, you know, of what happens when you start putting concrete or ground or gravel or whatever. So we've got to see about maybe having a big retention pond built or something to catch this water that comes off of there or whatever. And anyway, so that's what I want to talk about.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
Sure.
Anybody else wishing to appear for? This is appear for the extraterritorial rezoning request. State your name and
Hello.
company.
Jim Goodschmider, N3844, Goodland Road. We're the ones that own the property. We've had a welding business. I've been in business since 1980. The wife and I started it, and now it's on to the next generation. In the 43 years we've been in business, we have never had a complaint from a neighbor or from anyone. We try to be good stewards, you know, try to do our job right, because we depend on everyone to make a living, and we don't want to aggravate people. And when we surveyed this off for this piece of land, we surveyed it, we put it right in the middle of the property on Goodland Road. So we'd have farmland on 3 sides of it, so it wouldn't be a nuisance to the neighbors. And you probably know why, you know why this came about, that we wanted to split it off, and the city said, no, you can't split it. You can't split it off, or the town said you can't split it off
Yeah.
because we haven't owned it for 5 years.
Right, it was the town in
The
2018,
town.
correct.
So now 5 years is up, and it was all zoned industrial for the last 5 years. Now we're gonna take the 20 acres and put that back in ag and keep the aid in whatever it is, industrial. That's the whole idea there, what we're trying to do. And we positioned the driveways on Goodland Road, and we positioned them so when you pull out with a truck, you got plenty of room to see, and you got enough room to straighten your truck out when you get down the highway end, so that you're not in the middle of the road, you know. It's positioned, we think, correctly. I guess that's all I really have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Third call, any more appearances for? If not, we go appearances against. Anybody wishing to speak against the extraterritorial rezoning request? Anybody against? Third call, anybody against? Hearing none, discussion by council. Any questions, comments? President Wozniak.
Well, 5 years ago, this issue came in front of the council, and it was met favorably. There was no problem at all, but it was a 5-year waiting period, and we've reached that point now. So it was received very favorably 5 years ago, and I think it should be received very favorably tonight. I don't see any problems with this at all. Jacob, that water issue, was that discussed at the Planning Commission meeting?
Yes, the issue was discussed. Again, any development, because it's industrial, would trigger NR 151, which would require DNR review if it's 1 acre in disturbance or more, not just the square footage of the facility, but all the land disturbance. Once it goes greater than 1 acre, it requires DNR review. It would fall on the county and all the permitting jurisdictions to review the building permits, and then also make sure at that time that the DNR has accepted or reviewed it.
So it does require DNR review.
If they disturb more than 1 acre of land, yes.
Goods and renters are aware of that, I would assume? Okay. All
Wonderful.
right. Once again, I would recommend that we approve this. I won't make a motion yet, but we'll
Understood.
open it up for discussion.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, I'll close the hearing and ask for action on ordinance 1471, amending the town of Rubicon zoning map. We would be looking for suspension for immediate consideration, correct? So, for suspension, Alderperson Turchi, second by Alderperson Fulham.
Motion by Alderperson Turchi, seconded by Alderperson Fulop, to suspend the rules for immediate consideration of proposed ordinance number 1471.
For suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Now for action on ordinance 1471, amending the town of Rubicon zoning map, a part of ordinance 1138. Alderperson Turchi, second by President Rusniak.
Motion by Alderperson Turchi, seconded by Alderperson Resniak, for the adoption of proposed ordinance number 1471.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No. Motion carried. We go all the way to resolutions and possible action thereon. Resolution 3652, an extraterritorial review of the certified survey map for the northwest corner of Goodland Road and County Road Highway N, Town of Rubicon. And with that, City Planner
All right,
Jason Ma.
this is just a continuation of this discussion that we just did prior. Again, we're looking to create the 2 parcels where Lot 2 will become the agricultural district, Lot 1 will stay industrial. As you can see, Lot 2 is C-shaped around Lot 1, which creates a buffer for them. So staff approves this CSM because it meets all the standards for the zoning districts.
Super, thank you, Jacob. Go ahead.
Motion two?
We have, you bet, we'll take that unless there's any discussion. Motion to
Suspend?
approve. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do we suspend again?
No, it's
No,
still
this is a resolution, not an ordinance.
Got it.
Okay.
Second.
No worries. I got caught on that 1,000 times over the last 9 years. Alderperson Turchi, second by Alderperson Fulham.
Motion by Alderperson Turchi, seconded by Alderperson Fulop, for the adoption of proposed resolution number 3652.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. With that, we go to the city administrator's report. Our city administrator, Steve Volker.
Okay, we have before you the second quarter of 2023 general fund results. Again, the reason we do this every quarter is just to give you information on where we are financially for the city and general operations. This does not include utilities. This is all for general operations or Fund 100. Basically, the city was at 37.03% of the budgeted general fund revenues at the end of the second quarter. This is lower than the average of the prior 6 years, which was 42% and 5% less than the prior year at 42.72%. Again, this quarter, the property taxes are a major reason. We had less collection of property taxes for 2022-23, done actually in the fourth quarter of 22 versus the first quarter of 2023. I think that says a lot about the economy too, is when an awful lot of people were paying their taxes in the fourth quarter versus the first quarter. The total general fund expenses for the current year, second quarter, is at 45.63%. This percentage is slightly lower than the average of the prior 6 years, and 2.5% lower than last year. I find that to be a positive situation with, again, costs of a lot of the things that we're doing, including gasoline, which is one of our major purchases, being a much higher this year. That, again, we're doing relatively well in a lot of our figures. If you look at the revenues versus expenses figures, so we're behind by about $982,886, which is in range of the prior years. Keep in mind that much of our revenues come in the form of tax payments primarily made in the fourth quarter. So again, we anticipate that happening again in the fourth quarter of 2023. This year, we continue to stress watching the budgets to make sure that we're still come within budget on both expenses and revenues. And with that, I'll just bring to point what Wendy had brought up earlier when she did the audit, reported on the audit for 2023, or 2022, excuse me. All of the expenses would have actually been under budget had it not been the fact that we did spend additional money, unexpected money, unbudgeted money for the property for the firehouse. So again, we had, while it looked, or it appears to be worse than it was, again, the biggest issue was that unexpected expense. So overall, again, department heads continue to review on a quarterly basis, if not a weekly basis, where their budget is and their figures are at. And so at this point in time, we don't feel that there's any major red flags with the financials of the city. Any questions?
Just a quick question, because you brought up the gasoline prices. We've usually ended up, or you and your staff have usually ended up budgeting a little higher to make sure that we took out. Where did we budget versus what we're actually paying right now?
Oh, that's a great question. I would not know the answer to that question. I'm guessing it was probably 3.25, 3.5. We would have conservatively put in the budget for that year.
McFarland might know.
Oh, okay. Would the chief know? Did you?
Yeah.
We'll put the chief on the spot, seeing he's been so kind as to wander into the web here. And if you know what the dollar amount of what we actually budgeted for, well, of course, that would be police and fire, but I'm assuming they all use the same fuel, so.
Sure.
Do you remember how much you budgeted for gas?
For 2023?
Yeah.
For 2023, we budgeted $3.99 a gallon,
Oh, good.
and I budgeted, I'm trying to think here, $44,000. The previous year, I hit it by almost exact. I mean, it was probably within $1,000 or so of what we actually budgeted, and we were under. I anticipate we'll be under this year as well. The 2024 budget I did increase. I kept it at $3.99 a gallon, but I budgeted approximately $55,000 for fuel, not knowing where we were going to be. There's a lot of things that I do look at, and I can certainly share those calculations, not the least of which is some of the energy sites, previous averages over the last 3 to 5 years, how many gallons, because we keep track of all that, and then whether or not we have gas cars versus hybrid cars, whether it's an election year or not an election year. I mean, that's some of the things we actually do think about. And so we budget at $3.99, and this year we've been fortunate enough to get below that, and in some cases it's getting close. So I anticipate that we'll come underneath that number, but.
Super, thank you. It's the only question I had. Anybody else on the second quarter? Go ahead, President Wozniak.
With Steve's report, that couple $100,000 for buying the land for the future fire station, Wendy considered that an expense, and it truly is an expense, but it's an investment. It's not really an expense as such. It's an investment for the future.
Well, it becomes a cash expense.
Sure.
An accrual liability, basically.
Yeah, from an accounting standpoint,
Yep.
it's an expense,
$231,000.
but it's an investment.
You are correct. Anybody else? If not, I would look for motion to adjourn. Alderperson Savage, second by Alderperson Fulop. For adjournment, all those in favor, say, oh, did you have
You gonna let
something?
me do my spiel?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, please, spiel away.
Motion by Alderperson Savage, seconded by Alderperson Fulop for adjournment at 7:44 PM.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Please sit.